in a little while. I'm just curious how he's doing. Is he still back at practice, and is he closer to coming back?
Yeah, he's back at practice, and he'll be out there today, which would be great to see him out in some some situations out there and get him some reps and see what it looks like. But he's getting better every week.
Dave?
Matt, I was curious what leadership looks like this year, I guess, from a player standpoint, really, just in terms of, COVID, you can't be around guys as much, or smaller groups, or more socially distant. So how has that challenged your leaders in the locker room, and in what ways have they, adapted, creative or otherwise, I guess, to that?
Yeah. That's a really good question. I would say from a standpoint of leadership, one of the biggest things we always talk about leadership is really just doing what you're supposed to do, doing your job, and really set an example of, how you are every single day. I think everyone on the team is leaders, by how they approach, when they come in the building. So from that standpoint, I think the guys have just done a great job of communicating to each other, and certainly, with COVID and trying to do a good job of socially distancing and all that. I think in general, everybody's kind of tried to work around, those parameters as people, as we try to communicate and still be social in that aspect. And certainly in a profession where you got to work very closely with people, I think our guys have done a great job of just continuing to have that really open communication.
Did you have any discussions with guys, be it in the spring or when they came back, just about, doing that, I guess, still being able to be leaders, even with the restrictions, I guess, that are around? Yeah.
I would say that obviously the spring, was really cool in the fact of how close I thought our team got, even through Zoom. I thought there was some great dialogue and great conversations that we had that, honestly, once we got in the building, I think everyone was just so excited to be around each other that's just carried over. And it's really more of the just kind of trying to remind everybody to be safe, I would say, more than anything else.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
O'Hara?
Yeah, Coach, this is just a general question, but I just wonder, it seems like the game has speeded up the last couple of weeks, that players are in football shape now, their legs are underneath them. Is that accurate, or am I reaching too far for something?
I don't know. That's a good question. I would say the game always looks fast to me. So, those guys are always moving pretty quick. I would say some of the fundamentals, I think, have settled down a little bit. Let's hope that stays that way. But that's really maybe the biggest part of it, where you're seeing maybe a little bit better tackling, a little bit better angles, maybe some better running with the ball, and maybe the vision and things like that have sort of come with game experience now after, let's call it 4 or 5 games under your belt. And I think some of that stuff slows down a little bit for you, which allows the players to play faster.
Thanks for not shooting me down. Appreciate it.
Got it.
Justin?
Hey, Matt, we hear the term like game plan wrecker with guys like Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack, Chandler Jones, guys like that on the defensive side of the ball. I'm wondering, when you look at a guy like Quentin Nelson, it's not often we're asked about a guy that's on the interior of the offensive line, but such a reputation so early in his career. Does that game plan wrecker correlate at all to the offensive side of the ball? And if not, how much do you have to game plan specifically for an interior lineman of his caliber? Yeah, I love offensive line conversation. This is great, Justin. I think obviously he's a great young player. He's strong, he's physical, and I do think he sets the tone for those guys. I think when you start talking about game plan wreckers or just guys on the other side of the ball, you have to be aware of. You have to be aware of him and where maybe some of the attack points are. With their offensive line, even in the run game, it may be headed in a different direction, but it may all wind up back at the same spot, if that makes any sense. And those are things that we look at. What are really the apex up front, and where can they count on being the stoutest? And certainly, with Phillip Rivers, he's going to have those guys in front of him that he can trust and move in front of and slide with the pocket, and understand the guys are going to keep the depth of the pocket a little bit better. So I think he's definitely a guy you look at and you say, okay, what does this guy do really well? And, how do we got to play against him, to make sure that it doesn't penetrate the defense in that area. What does separate him from so many other guys at that position? Yeah, I mean, first I would say his technique. I think even really coming out of college, I actually was there when those guys were coming out, and I think just being coached up the way he was coached in college, he's fundamentally really sound. I think on top of that, he's got a great play style. Let's just call it, he's got a great temperament for the O-line. And I think that, combined with the really good fundamental technique that he uses, he doesn't really get in a lot of bad
situations are bad positions, and he's strong and he's stout. So I think those are things that you look at, especially with the offensive lineman as a young offensive lineman, as you see him progress. Really at this point, it's just about gaining, I would call it, NFL game experience, which he's been able to do very quickly, recognize the games, recognize the different movements up front, maybe then tie into a little bit, from an offensive line perspective, you're always kind of looking beyond level 1. You got to learn how to read level 2 and really at some point read level 3 and how that dictates what happens with the defensive front up in front of you. And I think he's been able to do that and see that and respond, very quickly.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Stats.
How you doing, Coach? Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good. Just wonder your impressions of Phillip Rivers this season playing with the Colts and maybe any of the noticeable differences you've seen with him operating with the Colts offense as opposed to how he was operating with the Chargers.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me right now, just taking a look at him, I think he's playing at a really high level. I think he's settled into this offense, and really the command of it is I guess what you notice right away, especially, with Coach Wright and what he's been able to do and implement from obviously his time with Phillip at the Chargers, and then, bring some of the Philly package in there and, the way he's been able to include that. I think, Phillip Rivers looks healthy, to me. He looks like he moves really well in the pocket. He's got great footwork in the pocket. I think his accuracy and his arm strength, all that stuff. And he's able to really keep his vision downfield. I think, just in different years of quarterbacks, and certainly have played against him for a long time. And he's a he's one of the most competitive guys that you play against. I have the utmost respect for him. That goes all the way back to him playing through a torn ACL in a championship game. This guy is as tough as they come. But I think one of the things that he's, doing a great job of is keeping his eyes downfield. I really think that the trust is building with his receivers, and he understands, kind of where they're going to be. They do a great job of kind of speaking to each other when plays break down. And I think that's where I've really seen his improvement, is just being able to keep his eyes downfield, trust the protection in front of him, and be able to get the ball out really fast. And those are areas that he's operating at very highly.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Rod.
Hey, Matt, with a running back like Jonathan Taylor, a rookie who's having to carry most of the mail by himself because Marlon Mack was injured, it's certainly something you didn't want to do with Swift, because you got Peterson to give him some of that veteran leadership. How difficult is that for a young runner to just be thrust into that type of role?
Yeah, I do think obviously, you're going to learn on the fly very quickly. And I think that in the running back position, that position just in general takes a lot of pounding, and especially when you run the ball as much as they like to run the ball. I think one of the things that they've really done a good job is Hines, 21. You're going to see him in there quite a bit. And, they'll give him the ball certainly in that accord. And Wilkins, he'll come in. He's more of kind of that downhill runner too. And they'll spot him just enough, but he's out there a lot. And, look, they're operating at a high level with him, and coming off the bye week, I'm sure he's going to be rested and ready to go. But I think that's the biggest concern you always have with a young running back, is that when you get to probably about, week 14, 15, when the grind of the NFL season really takes its toll, and you're probably 6 or 4 games past what a college season would be, that's where you start to maybe see a little bit of the wear and tear. But he hasn't slowed down at all. He's not showing that at all now, and they're going to just keep featuring him from that standpoint. He's big and he's strong, and I think that's part of it. He's got good size, so he's going to be able to endure a lot of that as the season goes.
What have you seen from him in these first few games and that transition from college to pro?
Yeah, you see all the stuff that you saw coming out. Certainly his power, his explosiveness. You see his speed. I think all of that is still there. I think it's when you see him get out in space, I think you can really see that for a big guy, he's got some of that shiftiness and that smooth running style that he can really have those explosive plays. And then certainly I think, he's done a good job with just his vision, I would say. They run a couple different scheme runs, maybe a little bit more than what he was doing before. And I think he's doing a good job of really seeing the linebackers, feeling the defensive line, seeing the linebackers and finding those holes and getting vertical. He's not a guy that really goes backwards very much. He's a guy that just kind of keeps it downhill. I think those are really good traits for a young running back.
Appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we'll go 2 more, Mike Rothstein, then Jim Aiello and Indy.
Hey, Matt, how you doing? I got a couple for you, hopefully fairly quick. The first one is with Phillip Rivers. Do you feel like he still has the same velocity that he did in the past, and that he's maybe still as mistake-free as he was? Because he's got 6 interceptions already, and it seems like teams are being able to put him in positions where he is maybe forcing the ball a little bit and trying to make throws that he used to be able to make better. Have you seen that because you faced him so many times on tape where maybe it's a little bit off, a little bit less than it was just because of age or whatever?
Yeah, no, I don't really see that. And, I would say that, certainly there's always a feel factor for trying to get to understand new receivers, new system. And certainly when you're in one place for as long as, Phillip Rivers was with the guys around him, certainly there's a high level of comfort with Antonio Gates and guys that you're just used to working with. And, I can see that developing, with like T.Y. and Pascal. You can see the trust level, especially with the tight ends too. They do a great job down there, and Burton just got there. So I think as the season goes on, you'll see that continue to develop, and there'll be, those plays that just come real natural to him. But I wouldn't say that at all. I actually think he's moving, he's moving well in the pocket. I think he's making quick decisions. I think he's trying to get the ball out fast. And, this is a very competitive guy now. This guy is about as fired up as they come. So, you got to give him all the credit in the world.
And I want to follow up on one of Dave's questions. And this is maybe a little bit of a weird question, but as it gets colder, as COVID cases are spiking and ramping up again, do you have to talk to your players about kind of what their families are doing and what maybe their people in their circles are doing, even more so than maybe what they're doing, because they're in the building for 12, 13, whatever it is hours a day? Where do you have to kind of have that conversation again with them to kind of say, hey, listen, like, you've gotten this far, don't let up?
I think from our standpoint, COVID is always a conversation. We're always talking about making sure we're being smart, and more is more. And I think the interesting thing about the cold weather coming in for us, living in the north, is just flu season. That's a whole nother conversation, because the symptoms are obviously very similar to COVID, and trying to get as much information to our guys as possible so that they can make good decisions about that too, and just constantly trying to remind everybody to stay healthy. And I think that, our guys understand that when we talk about that, we're talking about everybody, that's in your circle, and just trying to be smart all the way around the board. So I think our guys have, they're trying to do they're trying to do the best they can with all of it. They really are. Unfortunately, the world is still in a state of a pandemic, and everybody's dealing with it, and we're trying to do the best we can in our environment to stay healthy and safe for everybody.
Appreciate it, Matt. Thanks, man.
Yep.
Here we go. Last one, Jim Aiello in Indy.
Morning, Coach. Thanks for the time.
Absolutely.
Just want to ask a general question about Matt Eberflus's defense. What are kind of some of the standout traits that you see when you watch him, and then watch his defenses perform? And then this defense has a lot of talk about them elevating to a new level this year. Have you seen that out of this unit?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. I think that, one of the things Coach Eberflus has done a great job of is really allow that defensive line to just get after it in both the run game and the pass game. I think Buckner was a phenomenal pickup for them. I think Houston is a great player. And I think it's really elevated the level of the guys across the board. Stewart's a really good player too. Inside, he gets a lot of penetration, a lot of disruption, and then those guys play off of it. I think one of the things that's so unique about Buckner is just his length and his ability to, get off the ball for those interior defensive tackles when he plays inside. You're just not used to guys that long. He's across the ball. He's usually got his hand in behind the guard's shoulder pad, and he's kind of ripping through there before you even get a pass set. So I think that attacking style front really has elevated the defense. I think Leonard does a great job of finding the football and tracking it in both the pass and the run game. And obviously, they're playing really solid outside in the corner position. I think Rhodes is playing, he's playing really well. You see his quickness, his length is always there. He's aggressive. He's a savvy vet, so he's going to see the routes. He's going to sit on those things. And, more on the other side, I've got some experience with him too. He's just a tough football player. He goes out, competes. I think that Coach Eberflus has done a great job of fitting the scheme to those guys. They play a lot of zone, and I think they read the zone really well. They let the pass rush get there, and then they read the quarterback and break. And, Blackman in the back part of the field, I think he's phenomenal right now. His range, his anticipation. I think I mentioned it yesterday. I think in just a couple games now, he's got 2 INTs and a bunch of PBUs. I think he's done a really good job of kind of freeing those guys up front to be attacking.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Thanks, Coach. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. All right. Everybody have a great day.
Thanks.
Yep.